Hi and welcome back to Mike Makes It. I've been waiting for this delivery for a couple of weeks now. It's been on back order from Axminster Tools in the UK, and it's a bandsaw. It's not top of the range, it's a mid-range saw, suitable for the garage, and I've made a space there for it. 72 kilos in weight, £479 delivered. And you can see on the label, it's an MCB1155HD bandsaw. 230 volts, great for the region I live in. So we'll get that out, get it put together, and see what it actually looks like in real life. Well, let's have a look what we got on the box. A bar, we'll find out what that's for, but I think that's to lift it. It's got a couple of wheels on the back end. Couple of wheels there, bag of nuts and bolts, a couple of panels, 3 panels as a door, and all the other paraphernalia you're going to need to make yourself a stand. All well packed, can't see any damage yet. A little bit of indent in the box there, where it's had a small knock, but there's no paint off by the looks of it. So, right, I'll go set this all up on a bench and we'll get it put together. Right, found the instructions. Let's see how we get on with that. Alright, okay, there you go, all put together. It looks a bit weird with a sloping forward door, but hey, there you go. On an equivalent model I found, I think it was only in the US, so it didn't even have this door, so that's a nice little addition to put other bits and pieces in, perhaps spare saw blades and bits and pieces. Nice little mechanism there to latch it. You don't need a key to unlock it or lock it. Certainly not to open the door, but there is a key supplied so you can lock it securely if you need to. But I do like that mechanism. So right, well, still got the wheels on the back to put on the axle, and a couple of buffers at the front. What it didn't come with is too many of these. In the manual, I'll call the manual, they say elastic washers. I know these are split washers or spring washers, because the saw's going to be vibrating a bit, so really you're going to want those on there. So I'm probably, I don't know, 10 short. So that's, again, no biggie, but it would have been nice to have all the stock. So I'll go put these buffers on, get the wheels on it, and next thing is get the saw out the box. Right, just putting the wheels on, I notice this wheel face of the hub will rub straight onto the metal cabinet, which I don't want to happen. So I've just knocked up a couple of aluminium washers, 16mm diameter, so they'll go between the case or the cabinet and the wheel hub itself. And I'm going to whack a bit of grease in here because these are roller bearings. They're quite nice bearings in here. Just going to stick a bit of grease in. You could argue it's going to pick up sawdust and other bits and bobs, but there's not much of a hole there, and they ain't going to move that much. I'm not going to take it shopping with me. I'm just going to use it around the workshop. So I'm going to stick some grease in there as well. So that was just a quick add-on. Only just one other minor point. 10mm thread on the buffers to go on the base of the cabinet. Now in the cabinet itself, it was tapped out to 10mm, but I think they've overpainted it, so I've had to re-tap them out, which no biggie really. But I'm also going to add a couple of 10mm nuts, nylon nuts, just on top of them, because I feel moving it around, eventually they're going to come unstuck. If I have to level them, then I can do the same, nylon nut, just unscrew it a little bit. But I'm pretty sure I won't have to level it. The garage floor's uneven enough as it is, so we're okay there, trust me. Couple of nuts, that's done. Cabinet on the floor, we'll get the saw out. Okay, let's see what's in the box. I'm hoping it's going to be a saw. A few bits and bobs on the top, and a handle. By the way, if you're looking for the book of words to put the cabinet together, it's in the saw box, right on the top. Nice lot of polystyrene to get rid of. Let's just inspect it to see what's got smashed. Hopefully nothing, although there is a bit of polystyrene in there. Yeah, it looks okay. So Mike's going to have to get a little helper in to lift this saw off onto the cabinet, because this is about 70 kilos. So yeah, 2 minutes, as if by magic, it'll be on the cabinet. Right, there you go, there's a saw on the stand. And I'll tell you what, you do need 2 people, or probably 3, to lift that, the head of the saw, if you like, on. And trust me, it is over 70 kilograms, so yeah, it's way too heavy on my own to move that. But I've bolted it on, 4 bolts, 1 each corner, no surprise there. There's a couple extra bits I've got to fit on. I've got to attach the hydraulic damper. This allows the saw to come down slowly in a controlled manner through the metal or wood or plastic you're cutting. That's why I went for this one, really. It's the cheapest one that had that fitting on it, and I want a controlled drop as I'm cutting. So yeah, that's what I got. So we just wander around the other side. You've got the motor, on off, mains, plug in the mains, just a normal 13 amp plug on there in the UK. There's the back side of it. Wheels on the back, buffers at the front, and you got a lifting lever here. So when you want to move it, pull that out, jack it up at the back and wheel it around on the front wheels. So that's quite nice. So what I'm going to do now, get the manual out, set it up, put a couple extra bits and pieces on it that need to go onto it. Have a little bit of a cut, then I'll come back to you and you can, well, I'll show you what I've done, and we'll see how well it cuts. Just one more quick thing I've noticed. You've got the wheel to attach to the vise. There's the vise. The shaft moves in and out a little bit, so you're relying on the actual fact that the wheel will rub up against the housing of the saw. And there's no washer there, so you're going to have plastic on metal, and plastic wears. It's still going to wear with the washer I've added. You've got a washer in there, but not so badly. I've greased it up. I'm not going to damage the paintwork. So I'm just going to fit the wheel, but that's only one extra thing I want to point out. I think a little washer there would be benefit, and it's got one now. Rightio, I've been through all the settings on it as per manual. Everything should be pretty much squared up, 90 degree, running straight, etc. I've got a 90 degree cut going on, a 30mm piece of aluminium extrusion. As you can see, it's in the vise. The hydraulic setup here is set so the saw descends quite slowly. They say it's factory set, but with a big tap on the top, there's always, well, you want to mess with it, don't you? It's like wet paint sign. You want to touch, see if the paint's wet. But anyhow, the saw's dropping down now, so we'll fire them up. You'll get a bit of noise, so you might have a job hearing what I'm saying, but we'll have a walk around while it's cutting. Let's just get that a little bit closer before we start. I'm going to just increase the tap on the hydraulic valve so it's a little bit slower. So right, I'm going to fire it up now. With a few of the cuts I have done so far, I found if you let the saw drop down too quickly, i.e. the hydraulic adjuster's too open, the blade will distort and you won't get your cut that you're looking for. So it really is slowly monkey. There's the back of the saw. I've got the blade covers off so you could have a look. I've done a couple of adjustments there as per manual. You probably don't have to, but I always want to make sure it's set the best it can. And I've set it the best I can, so hopefully that'll be fine. Let's have a walk around here. We'll see how the cut's going. Well, we've nearly finished by the looks of it. There's an automatic stop, so as soon as it's finished cutting the metal, there's a switch here that'll basically turn the machine off, which is what you want. If you're doing something else in the garage, it'll get on with it and do it for you while you're doing two jobs at once. There we go. I have just adjusted that switch, badly by the looks of it, because it's not switched off, so I just need to increase that a little, just a tad. Right, I've lifted the saw head out of the way. On the back side of it, there's a latch, the 3-position latch, depending on how high you need the saw head for when you're placing work into the vise. So imagine you've got a big chunk of work, you don't want the blade or anything else getting in the way, so you can oik it up out the way. But this is a profile I've just cut. It's going to be a little bit awkward because I've got to undo the vise, hold the camera and pull the metal out, so bear with me, I've only got 2 hands. Right, that's the metal out of the vise. Here we go. If I get this over to the bench, we'll see how 90 degree the cut is. So I'll keep the camera running so you can see it's live and all that. No trickery here. Right, that's what we've just cut. Forgive me for waving around. Hopefully that's in focus. Looking directly at the piece with my eyes, that looks pretty good. That's not too bad at all for a first cut. I may set it to 45 degrees and we'll see what sort of cut we get there then. So yeah, back to the saw. Right, there you go. There's a saw. You can see I've done a few little cuts on a bit of aluminium extrusion. I've worked right through the manual and made all the adjustments necessary. This has come on a boat, no doubt, from China somewhere, so whilst it might have been set well at the factory, it's probably got bumped about, so I think it's well worth following the manual and going through the setups. There's about half a dozen to do. They are pretty much straightforward. There's no special tools needed. You've got the blade tension, you've got the blade run out, You want the blade to be sitting just on the back of these two pulleys. I've got the guard off for the minute so you can see. You don't want it rubbing hard on the back. There's a rim running around both the pulleys there. It says just have it touching, but it was touching, but was it really pushing hard against it? I don't know. So I've redone that setup. That's fairly straightforward. Round the front here, there's a couple of adjustments on each of these blade guides. Very straightforward again. Your hydraulic cylinder, they say don't adjust it, but there's a tap on the top, so you're very tempted to do that. And really what I've done, I've set that just about the same speed as it's cut in, so there's not any huge pressure put on the blade here. There's 3 bearings, 2 each side, 2 to stop the blade going backwards and forwards, and 1 to stop it rising up too much, but they'll be self-explanatory if you go and have a look. Any other adjustments? I did check this gauge here. It appears to be 1 degree out. So I can't set it to 0. I've got to set it to +1 for a 90-degree cut, which is a bit of a pain. But it's not a very accurate gauge anyhow, so you'd probably use other tools to square your work up. I know I would. Blade tension on the end, I think I may have mentioned that. And this adjuster moves the blade guide forward and backwards, depending on the size of the work in the vise. So I'd recommend bringing this all the way forward if you've got a very narrow piece of work like I've got in there in now. It'll stop any real flex on the blade. If you've got a big piece in there, fine. Whack him all the way to the back. I made a small adjustment to the switch off control there. If we switch the saw on, you'll hear the noise, obviously. But if I push the button, it'll trip out. So the idea of that is the saw will come down, it'll finish the cut, and it'll turn itself off. I've made an adjustment on that because it was cutting off a little bit shy of a finished cut. All in all, I gotta say I'm happy with it. The labels, which I always look at, as silly as that might be, they feel a good quality label. It's nice thick plastic they've used, and it's on at 90 degrees, and it's not starting to peel off. Only minor things, as I said, but nevertheless it just shows it's a fairly decent quality machine. Probably not the best. If you want to pay thousands, then go ahead and pay thousands, but that's a little bit... I'm DIY in a workshop at home. I'm not business, if you can see what I mean. Trade would be the word I'm looking for. In this top, you've got an adjuster, which I'll need to get a screwdriver for, so we'll take that lid off in a sec. There's 3 pulleys in there. In fact, bear with me, I'm going to wander over to where I know there's a screwdriver. There we go, we're wandering all the way back. I've got no assistant today, so I'm holding the camera myself, like I have done for the last 12 months. Bear with me, let's get this lid off. There's no interlock on this switch. Sorry, there's no interlock on this lid, so make sure it's unplugged from the mains. You wouldn't want to die. Right, 3 pulleys. If you want to adjust it, you alter the belt tension, obviously. You reduce the belt tension, and that's by means... I'm pointing in there. There's a bolt and there's a nut. Undo the nut, undo the bolt slightly. The motor will move in, and that'll release the belt tension. There's recommendations in here for this actual speeds. What I find a little bit annoying or confusing, this is a motor. This is the gearbox pulley, if you want to call it that. It goes off to the gearbox, which is incidentally is filled with oil. It's an oil-filled gearbox, which should be changed once a year. Not the gearbox, but the oil. But if you look on the plate here, it says motor pulley, gearbox pulley. Well, it's not. This is a motor pulley, which is this one. This is a gearbox pulley, which is that one. So really, somebody in the technical department back in China wants to swap them 2 around, because it will make it a little bit less confusing. But you know, if you know what it's about, you're fine. So you shouldn't have a real problem. But I've set it to mid-range because I'm going to be cutting mild steel largely. It's not a quick change, the belts speed. You know, you got Allen key, a bolt, and a nut, so it's not as quick as the pillar drill I've got. But I don't think I'm going to be changing the speeds. I'm going to be sticking to that mid-range, and that should suit me. But it's there if you need to. But remember, there's no interlock, so we could run that with the lid open, which could be a little bit tricky if you get your fingers in there. What else can I tell you? The cabinet was okay. You've got a lever here that does nothing else other than slide out, so you can lift the saw and wheel him about, which is very handy. It's quite heavy lump, 70 kilo plus, but it's substantial. So I don't think anything's going to break off anytime soon. The vise, nice little touch. I'm just going to whip that metal piece out. If you loosen the vise like that, it's a quick release, so it'll pull straight back. Push it forward, a couple of turns, and you're locked, which is nice. So that's really, really good. Across here, there's a couple of grub screws and a hole for a bar, which is here. Just grab hold of that. That's a depth stop adjustment, basically. You put that in there. A couple of grub screws. So you do need an Allen key, which is you can't do it by hand in the sense of your fingers. You need an actual tool to do it. But the idea of that is you can set a depth stop for the workpiece, which is nice. Do the Allen keys up, or the grub screws up, and you can repeat your depth of cut or size of cut, which is quite good. The only thing with this, though, when you've got the depth stop in, the vise won't go all the way up. That's as far as it'll go. So on the smaller pieces, you've added with the depth cut, unless, of course, you can find a position that you can move the vise in and the depth stop will go in behind it. I'm not sure if we can do... Now, see, I can't do that. If it was thinner, it may have moved up just enough to get the bar across, but in this instance it can't. So that depth stop's only really going to be very useful if you've got wider pieces in the vise here. Here, I said early on when I was building it, useful storage space. Put your manual, spare blades, etc. in there. What else can I say? A couple of little dents in the unit when I had it. A couple of elastic washers, they call it. Spring washers in my day were missing. Not a biggie. I've supplied those. You just look from a distance at it. Good old machine, I think. Or good new machine. Let's see it cut, though. So I'll get that cover back on, and we'll chop through a couple of bits of aluminium and you can watch that cut. Right, okay, last cut of the day. I think all in all it's going to be a good saw for the workshop. What I do find with it, and I've only just started using it, it's slower than I thought it would be. Like with the Evolution saw that I've had, the 230 I believe it is. Great saw, but the blades don't last very long. With this, I'm hoping the blades, certainly cost per cut is going to be reduced. Not so much the accuracy. The Evolution was a good cut-in saw and fairly quick for steel. But the blades didn't last. Blades cuts per blade were very, very high. Hopefully compared to this, but we'll see. I'll come back perhaps in a few months on YouTube and just give you an update of what I think about it and how I got on with it. But what I find, you can't rush the cut. You need the blade tension to be fairly high. If it's too low, the blade will expand and get loose, and that's what first happened to me. So the blade tension needs to be fairly high to get an accurate cut, and don't let the saw blade come down too hard on the work surface. Use the hydraulic adjuster to just nibble at the metal. You're going to distort the blade. That's what I'm trying to say. If the hydraulic cylinder isn't set correctly, there's going to be too much pressure on the blade. It'll distort, and you're not going to get an accurate cut. And the whole idea of having this machine is going to give me an accurate cut, a repeatable, accurate cut. And if I can get that, I would don't need for anything else. So yeah, I'll put all the links online in the comments for this saw, and basically in the comments I'll tell you what I think in a few days time also, so that may be helpful to you. But yeah, all in all, it's a sound investment and ideal additional piece for the workshop. But we'll let that slice through and we'll have a little bit of a close-up and you can see what you think. It's nearly through now, and it should shut off. If I've set that switch correctly now, it'll go on for a couple of seconds past the cut. There you go. And having measured the other cuts, it's a pretty accurate repeatable cut I'm getting, which is what I want. I thought we'd try some nylon. I think it's about 4 inches across. I've got some 10 TPI blades just turned up. I've increased the motor speed to its maximum, which is 54 meters per minute. And we'll try chopping through here. Clearly I've done one cut and it looks quite good. So we'll get that little shot now and you can see that on camera. So I'll just set that up so it's almost on the blade and start it. You do get a little bit extra noise with a higher speed. The blade is resonating. You do need to adjust this a little bit into the blade. If you have it further back, you get a lot more chatter. You shouldn't adjust it when it's running. You're going to muck the cut up. But there we go. It's not going to be a quick cut, but apart from just at the beginning where I messed with the blade guard there, it should be pretty good. I think we can increase the drop down just a tad. And there you go, we'll just let that go now. Right, nearly there. Right, it's not the quickest saw, as I said, but it does do a nice cut. If you can see that on camera. There's a few little marks in there. Now that's where I was fiddling with this adjustment. And you shouldn't really do that when it's running, because effectively you're going to move the blade. The blades, if you look in here, I can see the blade moving a tad. But apart from that, that's a pretty even cut all the way round. So I wouldn't want to do that by hand. As I say, ain't the quickest. But then if I was knocking these out as a business, you'd perhaps think of a different system. But right, I'm going to get this cleaned up because I haven't shown you the vise and the adjuster as such, how the saw head swivels. So we'll clean that up and we'll come back. Yeah, okay, let's clean that up a little bit. What I wanted to show you was the fact the vise doesn't move. On some saws, the vise moves around the saw. On this device, the saw head swivels, as you can see. The whole saw, motor, gearbox, a whole lot swings around the vise, which I think's better. But, you know, everybody's to their own. But, yeah, the vise stands still. But to cut on the right-hand side, you've only got 0 to 45 degrees. So that's about 0 there. You can swivel it round to 45 degrees. Now, to do a left-hand cut, it'll go 0 to 60 degrees. Now, clearly, if you cut like that, you're going to cut the vise in half. But what you can do, 13mm spanner, you zip the vise off. Shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds, I wouldn't have thought. We'll about find out, because the first time I've moved this, it's fairly heavy lump, so mind it don't fall on the floor. Now, spoil your day. Is doweled as well, which is nice. So make sure the holes are clean that it's going to go back into. You bolt that up like that. I'm only going to do those finger tight for now. And you can cut on the left hand side, and you've got, as I say, a 0 to 60 degree there. So it is fairly adaptable. But yeah, the main thing I like about it, the whole head swings around the vise, and the vise is very, very sturdy. Well, there you go. That's the Axminster MCB1155HD metal bandsaw. It's going to be a great addition to Mike Makes It, and the blades are only £10 each, so should be fairly cheap to run. They come in 10 to 24 TPI, so pretty much anything I'm going to want to cut, I'm going to be able to do it with those blades. If I find anything startling or anything I think you need to know about it, I'll do a follow-up video and post it on my channel. But hopefully you found the video useful. If you have, a thumbs up would be great. Anyhow, thanks for watching.